Hello artists, welcome to day 122 of the Epic Journey. I'm DaleneFM and today we're going to be having another but closer look at photorealism. What you see on the left are commonly googled images of high photorealism, and what you're seeing on the right is me doing a portrait on photorealism. When I started doing this portrait, I had intended to do the whole thing, but I actually only ended up doing part of it, and that is actually the crux of the whole matter of my conversation about photorealism. And folks, please understand that this is purely my opinion. As an originally photorealistic artist that has made an effort to become more and more loose over the years, I'm talking from a place of my own personal experience. Now, my experience of photorealism is that it is actually quite stressful. I found that trying to be absolutely accurate can actually really take its toll on one. I found more joy in becoming more expressive and more loose in my artwork. But photorealism is really popular at the moment, and like I've said before in videos, photorealism appears to have a reputation, particularly amongst non-artists, as being the pinnacle of success as an artist, or the pinnacle of talent as an artist. And in my opinion, and certainly in my experience, nothing actually can be further from the truth. Photorealism actually takes a completely different set of skills, in a sense, to something that's more expressive. With photorealism, one has to be very, very good at rendering really accurately, and you drill down right to the tiniest little detail in your artwork. It's that need to be so incredibly accurate, and the laboriousness of the very fine drawing that I tended to find quite stressful, and that I found more freeing when I let go of that and moved more into a more expressive and more contemporary style. That is not to deny the absolute beauty of photorealism. It really is incredibly stunning, and the skill that is needed to be able to render things so absolutely perfectly has got to be admired. But it does leave me personally with a feeling of a lack of creativity, possibly from the artist's point of view. Now, that is not necessarily the case in terms of the concept of the artwork. Some of these artworks are beautifully conceived and there's a lot of creativity that goes into the concept. But once the photographs are taken, the reference photographs that the artist would now take to be able to do their artwork, once that photography is done, once the photographs are taken, the creativity seems to stop, because from here going forward, from that point going forward, it's all about absolutely perfect rendering. Now, you'll see with some of the examples that I've got up here, if you have a look closely at parts of the drawings that are not yet drawn, you'll see that there's every little change, every little feature, every little pore is probably well plotted out. So once that is done, all the artist really has to do is sort of color in, except that it's not necessarily color. In the case of pencil drawing, you would pencil it in just in pure values. Obviously there's a lot of skill involved with making sure that your values are correct. So I don't intend in any way to lessen the skill in what is involved with photorealism, but one also has to have a look at the possibility that the artist is just reproducing what the camera has already done. Yes, there's a lot of talent that goes into composing it, but when the actual drawing happens, the artist is simply rendering pixel by pixel what the camera has already done. And that is probably not the most expressive way of producing art. But the artists that do this obviously feel incredibly fulfilled by doing it. So everyone to their own, absolutely. And like I've said before, for every kind of art that exists, there is a market for it. So if you're a photorealistic artist, then by all means, you may feel very differently about this than what I do. But if you're not a photorealistic artist, I encourage you to not be sucked into the concept of the more photorealistic you are, the more recognition you're going to get, or the more talented you are going to be conceived as being. That is really not the case. In fact, a lot of photorealistic artists actually, like myself, and I know of many others, actually change the way that they're doing things because the photorealism doesn't fulfill them in the same way as something more expressive would. So disclaimers and personal opinions put aside, the Epic Journey is all about learning. So let's get on with learning how to do photorealism. If photorealism is something that you want to do, then the two things that you've really got to learn to do well is to note accuracy and to be able to accurately depict values. So the two things that you're going to really practice is how to train your eye to see incredibly fine detail, and that is really just looking. You look with an attitude of trying to find the things that you would not necessarily normally see just by simply looking casually at something. So you want to really drill down. If you're looking at a flower, you want to go down to every tiny little vein, every tiny little change of color or change of value on that flower. If you're looking at a human face, then you want to look down at every little pore and how each pore catches the light. The other thing that you want to really train yourself to doing well is to judge value. The way to train yourself to judge value is to draw it. So this is going to take a lot of practice. You want to judge value really accurately, because you want to be able to draw the darkest darks accurately and the lightest lights accurately, not be too afraid to commit to very dark darks, and the graduations in between those very darks and very lights to get their positions accurately. My main word of advice would be that if you are trying to become more photorealistic and you're trying to put in a lot of practice to do this, please do not fall into the trap of reproducing your image onto your paper by means of false aids, things like projection and tracing. Don't do that, because it's not going to do you any favors in the long run. The more you practice your accuracy of drawing your original drawing onto the paper, the better you will be at drawing in general. So don't concentrate only on getting a photographic finish, but starting off with a projection or a tracing that is not going to allow you to practice and develop your skills at accurately reproducing the proportions correctly as well. You still want your drawing to be an original drawing from beginning to end, so that from the very first pencil stroke on your paper, that is all your own brain that is doing the work. Please don't fall into that trap. Projecting your drawing and tracing it off, or tracing it from the blown up photograph, is not going to be anywhere near as fulfilling as it would be if you were drawing the entire drawing without the means of artificial aids. So in a very small nutshell, you need to train yourself to see very tiny details and to accurately reproduce those details across onto your drawing. That takes a lot of practice, and one of the tips that I can give you is to remember scale. The bigger your drawing is, the more you can get those details in there. So certainly when you're starting off as a photorealistic trainee, then go big. You'll see a lot of these images that I've showed you here today. They're huge. The artists are drawing massive drawings, and usually the reason for that is because that gives them space to be able to fit in all those tiny details. You've also got to make sure that your pencil is incredibly sharp. So for the same reason, your very sharp pencil needs to get in there to all those tiny details, and patience. Lots and lots of patience. Draw slowly and carefully, and you'll get there. Artists, thank you for joining me today on the Epic Journey, day 122, discussing photorealism. I would really love to see your photorealism. For those of you that do photorealistic drawing, it would be lovely to see your work. Please won't you post them on our timeline, or pop them into a private message to me if you don't want them posted on the timeline, although I can't imagine why a photorealistic artist wouldn't want to pop things on the timeline for people to see. We would really enjoy seeing it. So thank you so much for joining me again, and I will see you tomorrow in day 123. And in the meantime, please like and share and spread this around. Thanks so much, folks. See you tomorrow. Bye. That's what you want to do.